Hey guys, welcome to our last video on Roman civilization. Woohoo! Okay, so where we left off, we were talking about the culture, art, architecture, things that the Romans did. So in our last video, we ended on creating the roads, the aqueducts, and the Roman numeral system. Okay, so today we're going to look at art, architecture, writing, and so forth. And then we're really going to get into the fall of Rome. Okay, so as we start to look at art, architecture, and writings, there's going to be a lot of names that we don't have to know for our test, but we do go over in our notes. Okay, so if we look at art, we're going to focus on statues. So if we go back to Greece, we know that the most perfect art form in Greek mind was that nude body, and a lot of their statues were done in the nude. Okay, so in Rome, they're going to adopt the same practice, but this time, instead of being like completely nude, they're going to put like clothing in strategic spots. So if we look at it, we don't see all these areas that maybe we don't want to see. Okay, so in Greece, we said that their statues were of the perfect people, and if the person wasn't considered a perfect looking person, they're going to make them look perfect. So the king that's really short and maybe a little heavier set, they're going to make him 6'2" and super muscular. So we know that the statue and the real person didn't look like the same thing. So in Rome, they're going to make their statues realistic. They're going to add on the wrinkles and the warts and all the other features that we may consider unattractive, but at least the statue and the person that they're creating look the same. Okay, so if we look at the statues, there's some similarities between Greece and Rome, okay, but they're going to make them more realistic. Roman buildings are going to also look similar to Rome, so we talked about the pillars and the using white, okay, but the Romans also added on new concepts, so they're going to have a lot of the arches, as we saw with the aqueducts. Curved ceilings became really common, this idea of a dome, okay, and the reason they were able to do that is because the Romans figured out how to master concrete. So concrete is something that we use today in buildings and in roads, okay. They made their concrete out of volcanic ash, water, lime, okay, and they realized it was very structurally sound. So they used concrete, which was allowed them to make these domes and archways. If we look at the Colosseum, the Pantheon, these are structures that have withstood time simply because of what they were made of. Literature, if we look at, again, we're looking a lot at coming from Greece into Rome. Okay, so writers and philosophers are very similar. Most are searching for the meaning of life. Why are we here? Why do we do this? What's our purpose? Plays are really common. They do reveal a little bit more of human qualities, not just bravery and courage, but some other emotions that humans feel. Okay, if we look at the writers at this time, we have Virgil, which we talked about before. He wrote the story of the Aeneid, which talks about Aeneas, the father of Rome. Horace is a new guy. He specialized in two types of writings, both poems. One's a satire and one is an ode. So a satire is a poem that talks about people, except that it points out human weaknesses. So it's not looking at bravery and courage, but maybe like how frightened we are, and different actions that we do based on our situation. Odes are going to be poems that stress strong emotions about a topic. So we might have the ode to joy if we think about that. So it's an ode, a poem all about why this is so important, such large emotions that go within it. If we continue on with literature, okay, in Rome they have two very well-known famous writers called Livy and Tacitus. Livy really looked at the power of Rome and how great Rome was. Tacitus looked at Rome and said, is Rome really that great? So two different viewpoints of being in a large empire. Okay, so Livy's going to say this large empire makes us great, and Tacitus is going to say this large empire actually makes us worse, because does the empire really care about us as people? Theater was very common, just like it was in Greece. In the photo, we're looking at an outdoor theater. For play roles, men, boys had all the roles, okay? So in a play, women couldn't be a part of a play unless it was a comedy. In a comedy, they would have parts in the play, but they couldn't talk. Okay, so comedies in Rome are called mimes, and if we think about what a mime is today, we can see where this word comes from. Okay, because mimes are people that act things out, but they don't speak. So women kind of started this out with this type of play because they would have roles, but they couldn't talk. If we look at the language in literature, Rome used Latin. That was the language of the time. Latin was actually the language of education and trade and government. Latin's important because it actually is the basis for our common languages today, including English and Spanish, Italian, and French. In English, I think you're learning about Latin roots, okay? That's the reason for this. Our language was based off of Latin, which came from Rome. Okay, so as we go on, okay, Rome being in its large size is going to start to decline. Okay, we know that Emperor Trajan actually got this ball rolling, okay, because he was the guy that said, boy, our empire is so big, I don't really think we can defend this area and this area, let's pull back. So Trajan actually created these little pockets, okay, in the empire that weren't defended, and we know that if areas aren't defended, other people will take that opportunity. Okay, so in Pax Romana, Roman peace, the 5 good emperors were the last empires of that time frame. Marcus Aurelius was the last one. Okay, so after Marcus Aurelius died, okay, the empire is going to break out into some confusion. Who's going to be the next leader? How are we going to protect this really large empire? Okay, so as the government is trying to figure this out, the army at this time realizes that they have the upper hand because they're pretty powerful, so they're going to use that to their advantage. So as the government starts getting these new emperors, okay, the army is going to kind of play their card, and they're going to say, well, if you want to stay in office, you got to pay us some more. Okay, and if you can't pay us more, we're going to go in and we're going to take you out, we're going to kill you, and we're going to install a general as the new emperor. Okay, so we can see that the army is kind of playing that power card. Okay, so this is going to lead to a lot of civil war between the government and the army. We have a lot of switching of emperors at this time. So if we look at this in the next 50 years, there's 22 emperors that go through. That's amazing. We said that Emperor Augustus ruled 40 years by himself, and now we have 22 different emperors in these 50 years. Okay, as the government is going down, society is also going to decline. Okay, people are going to, ask themselves, well, if the government's all in confusion, the army's not doing the greatest job, why are we doing such a good job? Why are we abiding by the law when the government and the army is not? Okay, so if we look, officials at this time took bribes, education declined, the wealthy people are going to play the wealthy card, they're going to stop paying taxes and doing their civic duties. The population, more people are going to become enslaved because the number of people who have jobs is going to go down. Okay, so as the government's getting weak and society is declining, now the economy is also going to decline. So it's kind of like this snowball effect. Okay, so we know that the army has a lot of power at this time. So instead of, trying to help Rome, they're actually going to hurt Rome. So at this time, soldiers are going to invade farms and try to take their land so they get wealth and power. Okay, but the problem is if you just take over the land and you're not producing any goods, you also have nothing to trade. Okay, and the people are not going to have enough food. Well, if there's not enough food, the value of the price of the food gets higher because there's not a lot of it. Okay, as an example, if we look at wheat at this time, for a bushel of wheat, it would cost like 7 or 8 drachmae, which was very normal. At this time, it went up to 120,000, so most people couldn't afford that at all. Okay, businesses closed, high unemployment was occurring. So the government's going to say, well, our economy is in disorder because we don't have enough money. Okay, so how do we fix this problem? Okay, so instead of trying to fix the problem of, the government and like the power struggle, they're going to say, well, if we don't have enough money, why don't we just make more money? Okay, and a lot of kids will say that too. We're in debt. Well, why don't we just make more bills and we'll pay it off? The problem is, if you make coins when you actually don't have that money, you're just making new. Okay, that is not in that's not in circulation, okay, and you're just adding more coins to it, it actually makes the value of your money go down. Okay, so you're adding in new coins that you technically don't really have in your economy. It's going to make the value of that decrease. So this whole idea is called inflation. So inflation means the value of your money is going down while the prices of your product is going up. Okay, so if people don't have enough money to trade goods, okay, they still need food and so forth. So now we're going to go backwards in time, and bartering is going to become more common. So people are going to trade good for good instead of setting that price. Okay, so as the government is weakening, society is weakening, the army is becoming kind of corrupt, okay, we know that this is going to have some problems. So now we're going to enter that invasion mode. So the two people they're going to worry about the most are the Germans coming from the west and the Persians coming from the east. Okay, so Rome is going to go on defense mode. So the people are already coming in because we have those open pockets. So the Roman cities are now going to build walls around them. They're going to try to protect them at all costs. The Romans thought maybe if they hired some of these invaders and made them a part of Rome, that would help. But the Germanic soldiers, they didn't have any loyalty towards Rome, so that didn't work. Okay, we have new emperors taking over at this time, okay, trying to fix some of these problems, but the problems were so big that none of these emperors are going to be able to make enough change to fix the government, the economy, and the society. Okay, so Diocletian, he took over at this time. He built forts at different areas. He actually took the empire itself, okay, and split it into 4 regions. Okay, so we notice that they're kind of going down that same path that Greece did. Okay, remember Greece went in and they divided theirs into 4 regions, which only led to its downfall. Okay, Diocletian is going to follow that same suit. Okay, people didn't really like Diocletian. They didn't agree with his laws, so he was very uninfluential. He wasn't able to make change. So Diocletian resigns, okay, and a new leader takes over. His name is Constantine. Next year, you talk a lot about Constantine. We briefly talk about him here. So Constantine is going to try to make some changes. So he's going to take the rules of Diocletian and he's going to expand on them. He made Job's family traditions, trying to get that unemployment down, okay. Even though he installed all these rules, the empire continues to decline. Okay, Constantine decides, well, Rome is the target. Why don't we move the capital to a new area? Make it farther away. That makes it hard for these invaders to take over the capital. If you get the capital, you get the country. So he's going to move it. So he moves the capital from Rome to an area called the Byzantine and calls the capital Constantinople. Constantine also embraced the religion of Christianity at this time. Okay, so no longer are we going to follow the mythology, we're going to switch to that Christian religion. Okay, so after Constantine dies, okay, again, we're in turmoil and nothing is working. A guy named Theodosius takes over. He realizes that Rome is just too big. He can't fix anything. So he took Rome and he split it completely in half. And now we're going to have 2 Roman empires. The Western Roman Empire, whose capital was in Rome, and the Eastern Roman Empire, whose capital was in Constantinople. Okay, but the problems are going to just continuing. Okay, so we focus on the Western Roman Empire because it's more with Europe, and that's our area for 7th grade. Okay, so with the Western Roman Empire, we're going to have these Germans coming in. Okay, the number one reason the Germans came into Rome was because they were trying to escape, okay, from a group called the Huns. The Huns came from an area of Mongolia, which is just north of China. So the Visigoths are going to come in and they're going to ask for safety. The Romans allow them in, but they treated them really poor, which then led to the Visigoths rebelling. This makes sense. Okay, so the Visigoths had some victories, which only led to more attacks. Okay, so if we look at the Visigoths, they're going to start taking over small sections of the Roman Empire. Well, once the Visigoths did that, new groups are going to come in, like the Vandals, and they're going to do the same thing. Okay, so the Vandals were a group that came in and they attacked the area of Spain, North Africa, Rome. When they came in, they would loot cities or steal things. They would burn the different areas of Rome. If we look at the word vandalism, that's destruction of property in our world today. It comes from this group called the Vandals. Okay, by the 400s, we know that the German people are going to take over every part of Rome at this time. Okay, so Rome is going to start to fall apart. Odoacer is going to be considered the last emperor of Rome. Okay, so if we look at Odoacer, he rules for 15 years, but there's a lot of conflict. Okay, so a guy named Theodoric takes over. Okay, but this guy is fully German. He takes the Western Roman Empire and splits it up into states. So no longer do we have this Roman Empire anymore. Okay, and now we have all these small German territories, which will eventually become the German Confederation. Okay, if we look at the Eastern Roman Empire, they're actually pretty safe because they're stationed more over in the Persian area and there wasn't a lot of invaders, and they're going to be called the Byzantine Empire. So no more Roman Empire. Now, if we look at Rome today, okay, if we look at Rome today, excuse me, I have to drop something here. All right, Rome is really important because of the legacies they left behind. Okay, so legacies are things that we use today because Rome created them back at their time. Okay, our big things is law and justice. So we can see the laws listed there. Everyone's equal under the law. You're innocent until proven guilty. Judges are fair and unbiased. Our government is based off of Rome. We have that republic in our government today. Okay, with the 3 branches. Okay, if we look at some of the other things, Christianity started in Rome, which was one of the major religions in our world today. The Latin alphabet provided the basis for most languages, okay, like English and French, Spanish, but it's also the language of science, medicine, and lawyers today. Okay, so if we look at Rome, they're really important in that respect. Okay, that's why we learn about Rome. And we're going to stop because we're going to be out of time. Okay, and we'll see you next time.